Monsters coming down the hall. Spiders cover all the walls. Serial killer is on the line. Wants to know if you have the time. Aliens are landing soon. This will mean certain doom. A chainsaw sputters and comes alive. Blood and death are close behind. One thing you can be certain of, the zombies just can't get enough. Just one more fight is all they want. The ghosts downstairs are on the hunt. The Shade Chronicles are keeping score. That's what all the writing's for. They record their stories one by one, so you don't miss all the fun.
His Nightmares by Derek Leffridge. What the hell was that? I say to myself while slowly regaining consciousness and realizing it's the same thing that always happens. You can set your watch by it as my sleep is disturbed, and here I go waking up violently again in bed trying to catch my breath while disoriented and looking in all directions in the blackness of the room. I just felt something brush aggressively against my uncovered foot, and it's very annoying to be in a deep sleep and then be woken up, but since this is certainly not the first time experiencing this, what happens next will quickly pass annoyance and go straight to diabolical.
Jimmy had had enough of the fucking closet. He barricaded himself in there when things at work went to shit. Now 3 days had passed since he scrambled from his car into the office to escape being torn apart by the zombies that seemed to be running rampant everywhere. There were rumors and reports all over, with none of them able to explain a goddamn thing about what was going on. Jimmy had heard reports on the news about a new disease in China, or maybe South America, but was really too busy to pay attention. Besides, the news was usually a bunch of hype anyway, just a brief collection of useless information bookended between commercials for dick pills and cars. But then he began hearing reports about people getting sick in the US, so he got online to see what the hell was going on. Some reports on social media said the people who got sick were made insane by a virus or an infection, causing them to be vicious, attacking people like wild animals. The images were fucking disgusting. Jimmy couldn't stomach to look at too many of the reports.
Growing up at my grandparents' home, the scariest place on earth was their basement. Walking down the steep incline of these dark steps to the basement is not recommended. The first light source is located below at the bottom of the first landing, where a string is attached to a naked bulb in the ceiling. The first flight will be treacherous to descend. Finally, I make it to the first of the 3 landings, and my horror begins. The musty stench of age and earth enter my nostrils. The small amount of light put off by the uncovered light bulb above me is only enough to see my way to the second landing, but barely. Never-ending blackness awaits past that.
It had been a little over a half an hour since his talk with Detective Wilson, and Manny was feeling edgy and impatient, so he decided to head out to Russell's property off Highway 5, since the detective was probably already there. He notices that he missed a text from Wilson about 20 minutes after their phone call that says, "Get over here, I found something you need to see." As the steps creak under his feet, Manny can hear some rustling, a thumping, and a faint radio playing in the distance of the basement. At the last step before the basement floor, he begins to look right, then left. With a bit more light coming in from the small basement window, he can see more than in the living room above.
Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the flash of the bomb exploding. He grabbed a nearby conduit with his left hand just before the air in the passageway was violently sucked into space, nearly taking him with it. When all the air had escaped, Rafe looked for a place to hide, although the passageway did not have much to offer. The best he could do was get behind a column of bundled conduit near the opening in the hull. The lighting in the section of the passageway was damaged in the explosion, so it was mostly dark with the occasional flicker from a dying light fixture. Rafe saw someone coming toward the hole in the bulkhead. The lights on their helmet illuminated the space right inside the passageway. Looking for anything he could use as a weapon, Rafe grabbed a broken piece of conduit that was long enough to be used like a club or a short spear. The intruder entered the hole in the bulkhead cautiously and scanned the passageway. There was quite a bit of debris floating around, and he had trouble seeing through it. He waved a hand in front of him to try to push some of the particles aside for a better view. From Rafe's hiding place, he saw the space-modified pistol in the intruder's right hand. His calculations all told him the same thing. He removed his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes, trying to erase what he saw on the page. The moon would be full at the 90-degree north latitude and 0-degree longitude for the next 2 weeks. He got to the doors of the stable when he heard the growling of the beast. He turned just in time to see the sharp teeth of the monster light down on his face.
Another louder rumble happens, and the kitchen abruptly shakes. A few things fall to the floor. Francis sits up straight, begins to push away from the table with the intent to get off the chair and get away from what is going on in the kitchen. Before this can be completely registered with him, the floor under his feet sags and makes a loud cracking sound. Struggling to balance himself, Francis begins to spread his feet apart with the plan to move to the left and get away from the part of the floor he is standing on as it shifts and sags. With fear and astonishment, Francis reaches for his cell phone on the table. As he extends his old knees and gets 2 fingers on the phone, the floor disappears below him and he descends into the hole it has left down into the basement.
Rays of light emerged from the oblong shape the pattern defined. After a moment, a man jumped out of the light, followed by streaks of lightning that flashed past him and struck the wall above Ezekiel's head. Sparks rained down on Ezekiel as he quickly covered his face with his arms. The man, in the alley now, turned swiftly to face the light-covered opening in the wall and extended his arm, revealing what looked like a pistol of some sort, and fired several shots into the opening. The sound of the shots reverberated in the space of the alleyway. Then he waved his arm, sweeping it in a downward direction. The opening shrank in size, following the movement of the man's arm, to the point where it vanished, leaving him and Ezekiel in the dark alley alone.
And before Julie quickly enters the lake, she can hear the cheers and yelling of support from her friends. As she goes under, the sounds quickly become muffled and the whoosh of the lake water fills her ears. Then she abruptly stops descending and feels pain as her thighs slam into something hard. Taking a quick inventory under the water, but still close enough to the surface to have some light, she realizes she has hit something. Or more specifically, she slid right into the back window, legs first, of a 1973 Buick Century Luxus, and she is now leaning over onto the roof as her right leg is stuck to the jagged edge of the car's back window. Blinking to clear his vision to make sure he is seeing what is there, he sees a blurry form. The form begins to change to a more smoky and clearer shape that resembles a person. Even though it is somewhat transparent, the figure morphs into what's more like a female figure with long hair standing outside on the observation deck, facing away from him.
Alex loved his wife Maggie with all of his heart. He did everything he could to make her happy for the first 13 years they had been together, and, up till now, he never quite got it right. Gehenna smiled at Alex, but it was not a warm, friendly smile, more ironic. He went on, "With my help, I can navigate you around the obstacles that stand in your way. Together we can achieve the desires of your heart. You need only trust me and allow me to be your guide." He reached out and offered Alex his hand. Alex stood up and took it. When he did, a wave of something passed through him. What it was, he wasn't sure or could even describe. It was like a trembling, nervous feeling that had passed from his head to his toes in a flash and then was gone. It was Halloween just before dark, and the streetlights were coming on in the sleepy suburban town of Eureka. The older kids noticed him first. A man in a coat and a hood standing beneath a single street lamp, his face and most of his form in shadow. It made them stop in their tracks and grab hold of the younger members of their group, who protested at impeding their efforts to get more candy. The kids waited until the parents pushing strollers and walking dogs caught up to them. The dark man did not move from his position under the street lamp. "Joey, what's wrong? Why did you stop?" Joey's mother said, and then caught sight of the dark man. "You know, it's a shame what this night has become. It used to be so magnificent and powerful. Now it's just a mockery of what it used to be," the dark man said from his seat in the back. Well, that's too bad," the male officer responded while navigating the police cruiser onto the main road. "The world has been pacified, taken over by lambs, while the wolves have been banished for being too powerful, too aggressive, too bloodthirsty."
With a gleam of sweat on his forehead, Matt steps back. He leans against the stone wall of the cellar, and he takes a deep breath. He takes a second deep breath and looks down at the person on the floor bleeding, gurgling for air and dying. The smell of acrid sulfur is in the air, and Matt, who has closed his eyes, opens them again, turns his head sideways, and grows a smile as he admires his recent work. Matt's next-door neighbor, who is located behind his home, Casey, is stirred from a morning nap on her couch. by the distant sound of the gunshots. Matt is walking backward up his basement steps to the yard and pulling something in a tarp. Then he stops to get a better grip and an arm falls out of the wrapped tarp. Casey sees all this, drops her binoculars, and begins to limp run across the yard towards Matt, yelling at the top of her lungs in anger and fear, with the mission to rip out his eyes because he has shot someone and it might be her friend, his grandmother.
You better watch out, you better not lie, you better step right or you're gonna die. Don't mess with Santa Claus.
Carl sat at the edge of the bar and sipped a vodka and soda, desperately trying to forget the shitstorm his life turned out to be. He wore a dirty Santa Claus costume, complete with hat and fake beard, which was off his face and hanging down by the strap around his neck. He slumped on his bar stool and tried to forget about all the money he owed Jimmy Two Toes, the local loan shark and mobster who ran the illegal gambling tables Carl lost at most nights. Was it over 10 grand now? He wondered. Had to be at least that. Christ, he was fucked. Carl paid his tab, picked up his empty kettle, and slumped out the bar by way of the back exit. The exit led to an alleyway that was dark and wet from the light mist that had been falling all day. Every surface glistened with moisture and was cold and damp. Carl felt the same way. Then behind him, Carl heard a tinkling sound. It wasn't mechanical. It sounded more musical, like the jingling of bells. Was there another corner Santa collecting nearby? The nerve of the asshole thinking he could take over his territory, Carl thought. Ready to dick punch his competition, Carl rounded the corner of the building where the noise was coming from in a huff. He stopped cold in his tracks when he saw the sleigh and reindeer sitting in the middle of the alleyway. At that moment, the reindeer all stood at attention. They must have thought their Santa had returned to the sleigh and was ready to go. The sleigh lurched as the reindeer pulled hard against their reins. Suddenly, the sleigh was moving fast. Carl had fallen down on the floor of the sleigh when it lurched. He crawled up to the bench again, fighting against centrifugal force. When he was upright, his mouth dropped. The sleigh and reindeer were shooting into the sky, just clearing the nearby building rooftops.
Shade Chronicles are keeping score.